Uh, sure. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. I feel like by now you know what you're getting when you get into a Fast and the Furious movie. You put your money down, you know you're getting something where you shut your brain off. Cars are almost irrelevant. Racing is almost irrelevant now. These guys are now superhero spy slash CIA folks. That's what you're getting now. And physics and all that stuff is out the window. None of that matters anymore. We are now just doing whatever the hell we want to and basically being the Avengers, but in car form, with probably a lot worse dialogue. I say all that to say that this series, if you've been with it the whole time, took a drastic turn at Fast Five and has subsequently gone down a level each time because it keeps trying to replicate the newness and freshness and just fun that Fast Five had. And each one just keeps amplifying and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And this one, it gets even nuttier than we've ever seen before, and thus becomes more of a chore to sort of like sift through and get through. Look, at the end of the day, this is a fun film. It's fun, your brain checks off. It's like cotton candy, you eat it, and when you're done with it, you'll probably forget it and never want to come back to it again. I don't know if that's something you want to spend 2 hours and 30 minutes of your life on. I didn't mind it. These Fast and the Furious films have definitely been things that I enjoy in the moment when I go into the theater and watch it. But outside of probably three of them, I don't really have a joy of ever popping them back in to watch again. One, Tokyo Drift and Fast Five are the ones that I'll go back to. The rest are kind of like, yeah, it was fun in the moment. This is right along the lines of that, albeit even a step lower than those. Still, if you like the Fast and Furious films, this is for you, but I would say that this is one of the lower tiers of everything that has come after Fast Five. In this one, Dom, really no different than the other one. Dom's resting, cool, family life. He and Letty are just having a good time with their little baby boy Brian. And then the world drops on their lap, and you get Taj and all of them coming to their place to say, hey, something's going on. We got to do this, this, and this. Mr. Nobody, Kurt Russell, who probably got paid to do like an hour worth of ADR and and just quick scenes to fill in the gaps of what he's doing, comes in and sort of puts the pieces in place to say that hey, your brother is out there and he's causing mayhem. This movie does the cardinal sin that I hate a lot of films do. Saw does it. The Saw franchise is just notorious for it. But using the eighth or ninth film in your movie to sort of retcon and correct and put into place things that have always been there. The fact that we know we're now hearing about Dom having a blood brother that basically wasn't like he was a bastard child or unknown. It was well aware that this brother existed. We've gone 8 films without ever mentioning his name, without ever seeing another photo, without Mia mentioning him as a brother. When we go to seeing his police records or in court stuff or police, nothing ever comes up that he has a sibling. Although when we get here, we act like everyone under the sun already knows. Letty knows, Mia obviously knows, Cypher is aware. 8 films. 8 films. And for someone who is as steadfast in talking about family, La Familia, and all of that, you've already started the thread of disbelief that this film has in comparison to some other ones. But they use the retcon trick, and they basically have some pretty solid scenes that happened in the past. A pretty great opening sequence, and you start building in scenes throughout the movie that have young Dom and young Jacob sort of getting to the point that we get to. And here we actually get some racing in this film, which is something we haven't seen in a while via flashbacks. We don't do anything in present day, but we do get some actual racing that takes place and sort of gets you harkens back a little bit into what the roots of this series was. All of that said, I won't get too spoilery, but all of that said, this thing gets nuts. And it gets nuts quick. The laws of physics are gone. And it changes from sequence to sequence. Whatever they want the action sequence to look like and how they design, they're using these magnets, which if you actually started breaking down, which you should never do in these films, but if you actually started breaking down the way that magnets and magnetism works and how they're using it, things would not operate in the way that they do in this. People's bodies and mechanics, after that catch in Fast Five on the car, they've just been progressively getting crazier and crazier. You see people bounce off of the hood of a car or get caught by the door frame of a car, and you're like, sure. I mean, I guess that's what we're doing now. We're full on Looney Tunes cartoon characters at this point. I would say if you're a Fast fan, you should see this within the audience. The audience was chewing this up, even though they well knew, and this is not a spoiler, they were all well knew because it was all in all commercials that Han was back. When Han hits on screen, people lose their shit. People eat this up, so there is still a die-hard audience for this, and I am a part of it. Like, I'll enjoy it, but I am definitely sitting here like, oh god, this is getting progressively nuttier and nuttier. Spoilers for this part. There's a sequence in here that I think everyone has sort of been clamoring for. They're like, hey, you guys are getting so ridiculous in this movie. The only way that you can actually top all the other crazy stuff that you've ever done is to go to space. And people are like, man, go to space, go to space, go to space. And they do. They go to space in this movie. And now, I wish they didn't go to space. It's terrible. It's so bad. It would have been better had they done something where they look up into space and sort of drop back down, but to actually be driving a car through space, now you're just like, cool, we just don't care. Like, you are now officially telling me that you don't care anymore. There's moments where Dom goes into just straight up murdering people. He's hanging people by chains and just breaking necks and snapping people's spines over guardrails. Everyone here is a well-trained fighter all of a sudden now. You have two hackers, but one of them's a great hand-to-hand combatant. Mia can fight now. It's just, everyone is the highest. So that leads me to sort of the biggest issue I think I have with this film overall. Because you know what you're getting. You're getting this dumb action romp where you're like, hey, unplug the brain, go in and watch it. I think this film suffers the most for me, aside from there is just some god-awful dialogue. Like some dialogue that you're just like, who wrote this? There is an entire dialogue between Cypher and Otto that takes place where he's like, I'm Luke Skywalker, and I don't want to ruin you because it's so bad, but it essentially leads to desecrating Yoda and a puppet being up Yoda's ass and her trying to get the one up on him mentally. And you're just like, this is all utterly ridiculous. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, these last three Fast movies have all been basically the same thing. Where Dom and the team have a mission. Either it be Deckard Shaw, Luke's Hobbs, or in this case, Jacob. They have to chase them or are being chased by them. Something happens, they do, calamity ensues, cars are all over the place, calamity ensues. Then all of a sudden, that person is now on their side. Every single film has operated in that exact same manner. So there is no ups or downs or surprises to any of these films. You're now watching a carbon copy of the exact same film happen over and over again. Since Fast 5, I believe maybe Fast 6, I think that's when we lose Giselle, there hasn't been any injury or hurt to any of these films. This team has been what it is. There's been no deaths. And death doesn't even really matter in this franchise because Han is back. So since 7, 8, and 9, all of these films had these high just action sequences that are just happening for the sake of it, and nothing really feels like it has any weight anymore or it matters anymore. Whereas Fast 5, because it was the first time we were doing that, we hadn't quite hit the full-on superhero mode. And then because in Fast 6 they actually do take some people out, it felt a little bit more like, okay, we don't know what could happen to this team. We may lose a member here and now. They're just repeating the exact same story over and over again. And why that becomes a little less fun in this particular one is because when you take both the superhero freakish looking guy like Hobbs, played by The Rock, off the board, and you take Shaw, played by the charismatic crank transporter badass man Jason Statham off the board, you then are left with the team that is Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, Dom, Jordana Brewster, and another hacker. And I'm supposed to believe that team can do all of this badass stuff. It just feels a little less believable, even though all of this stuff is wild and unbelievable, and it was even unbelievable then. But seeing The Rock with his arm the size of Dom's entire head rip out a piece of wall and start pumping iron with it feels a lot funnier and more charismatic and a lot more haha fun than this team doing it. It just loses a bit when you don't have either of them in it. And I'm not saying this is a series that needs them because they didn't have them to begin with, but I would argue that Fast 2, Fast 4 are some of the weaker ones before this. And once you injected The Rock and then you injected Jason Statham, you started going up in like the badassery of it. When you take them off and you're just doing with this normal team, you kind of just like, well, we're going through all these motions. We're doing all of this stuff. This entertaining as far as setting up these big action pieces. But John Cena does not replicate or fix, especially since he spends the majority of the time on the bad side, even though we know where it's going. He spends most of the time on the bad side, so by the time he comes to the good side, we don't really have anybody who can feel like they can move a mountain on the good team, and so we just lose a little bit of some of the what feel like I could see these guys being bigger than life or bigger superheroes with The Rock and Statham on it. When they're not, you're like, whatever. I guess it's possible. Of course, there's a post-credit sequence. I mean, we're getting 2 more of these. We know for a fact that there's a 10 and 11 happening. I believe they're going to start filming pretty quickly because I think this movie got delayed a whole year. They were supposed to start filming, and then I think this is the next one's supposed to come out next year. I don't know if they're doing 10 and 11 are planned. I don't know if they're doing a 1A and then like the rest of the part because there's a lot of seeds that are placed here and there. I who knows? There's a post-credit sequence. Stay after the credits if you care. That leads to sort of a tying up of probably storylines between Han and the person who was to have believed to have killed Han, but has done other harm to Han and other people on that team. But on the scale of once is enough, play it again, Stam, or give me a time zone so I never have to think about this film again. This is a once is enough. I will never watch this film again. And I don't really watch any of the Fast movies more than once. I usually, leading up to whatever the last release is, I'll watch them all, but I don't think that there's so many of them. There's so many bad ones now. I don't ever really see that happening again. They're fun in the moment, but they're just ridiculous. I think you keep giving me the original, which is basically Point Break, Tokyo Drift, which I just love. It's very different, and then Fast 5. Give me those 3. And that's all I need to get off to the races. Obviously, I've invested so much time in it now that I gotta kind of stick with it and see where we lead to. But unless they do a complete just jolt and just change the way the structures of this film work, it's getting to start to show the thinning of my patience and the thinning of any type of original idea to come up with. But what did you guys think of Fast 9? Are you still into the series? Are you starting to check out? And you're like, yeah, I've always said this is a dumb series, but now this is getting even too dumb for me. That's starting to be where I sort of teeter. But go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI, or you can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. We are currently doing a Marvel pair-up with Loki and Sci-Fi Television and Movies with our guest host, Jamie Jarrett. And we are doing a classic show of Hollywood Already Did podcast about, you guessed it, Fast 9. So I get to talk more about family. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.